Hello, boys and girls. Welcome to this month's installment of Pete Helps You Fix Stuff. This is a two-part series on how to fix drywall. In the first video, we are going to go over nail holes and molly bolt holes. And the second, we're going to go through a big drywall patch. Thanks for watching. Let's start with nail holes and molly bolt holes. So let's start with what you need. First, hammer. Second, piece of scrap wood. Third, drill, both bits and drill or screwdriver. Fourth, we need some putty. I like this stuff because it's thick and it actually fills up a hole versus the thinner stuff or just trying to use caulk. So instead of decimating my own home for this video, I figured I would create a test panel. So this is a piece of drywall and this is knockdown texture. Now there are different types of texture in Colorado Springs, but knockdown texture tends to be the vast majority of texture here in homes in Colorado. The first key is getting whatever is in the wall out with as little damage as possible. So here we're going to go over the three different types of hangers that could be hanging a picture on your wall. Let's start with a regular old nail. Now you don't know if this is in a stud or not, so this is why you want this. So you use this piece of scrap wood, you put it underneath the nail, then you take the claw of the hammer, attach, and then pull out using that. That way, you're not putting the claw against the drywall, which will mark the drywall or potentially dent the drywall if that's in a stud and you're really trying to yank that out. The second kind of hanger that you will encounter is called a molly bolt. Now, a molly bolt holds a heavier painting in place or picture or mirror or something like that where there might not be a stud available. And so the way that you can tell a molly bolt is that there's going to be a screw head instead of just a flat head. And so the first thing that you want to do is take out those screws out of the enclosure, and then you have these left to deal with. Well, you deal with these in two separate ways. So if there is no screw mechanism here, it is just a plastic hole, then what you do is you take a drill bit and you actually drill that in and you push it through to make that hole just as clean as possible. But if there is a screw hole, and this one is a little stripped from multiple takes, then what you do is you use a screw gun and you back that out. So you want to check which one that is because you don't want to drill this one in if you don't have to. This creates the cleanest, smallest possible hole for you to fill and then paint and touch up. Now, drywall is gypsum that is covered in paper. And sometimes when you back out or push in things, the paper can kind of come out. Now, that will show up if that is not dealt with. So what you want to do is you want to just anywhere where you can see or feel paper sticking up, you want to just push that in like this before you do anything else to make sure that that is level and there's none of that paper that's sticking out. The next thing that you want to do is you want to use some spackle to fill these holes. You can use caulk, you can use all kinds of different stuff, but I like this stuff just because it is thicker. And so it'll actually fill a larger hole like this without drooping. This stuff is also pink, and that is on purpose so that you can kind of see where it gets spread around. And when it dries, it will dry white. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're just going to take a little bit of this pink stuff. Now you can use a little putty knife like this. I use a putty knife for larger holes. Or you can just use your finger. I really like to use my finger for a lot of this stuff just because that's a mess. Because your finger, you can feel what you're covering. You can also make the hole as small as possible or the fill as small as possible. But in this instance, I'm just going to do this. Now, if this were a colored wall, this is a white wall. And so when this pink stuff dries, it's going to dry white. Now, if this was a colored wall, when this stuff dries, it's going to be colored, or it's going to be white on your colored wall. And you want your paint touch-up to be as absolutely as small as possible. And the reason for that is in case the paint doesn't match 100%. So what I like to do after I get the initial fill done is I take a wet rag and then I clean around the touch-up off as much of the stuff as possible, being careful not to touch the hole that you've just filled, because if you touch the hole that you filled, you'll pull the coverage out of the hole, and then that hole will still be there, or you'll be able to see the rim of the holes. Here you can see a touch-up I did in my actual home on a colored wall, so you can see how this dried white. Now, before I paint this, I'm still going to try to get that last little bit off, because as I said, if it doesn't match perfectly and I bought the wrong paint on purpose, then the smaller that touch-up is, the less it'll show. So now you can see I have this white as small as possible. Now, the next key that I use is the smallest paintbrush possible. If the paint matches perfectly, there is no need to feather. So you don't want to do all of this area. You just want to hit what is actually white. So we're just going to do the littlest, tiniest bit of touch-up paint possible. And then if it doesn't match perfectly, you barely see it. Let's let that dry and see how we do. So here's my touched up wall. It looks great, doesn't it? If you look close, you can see the paint doesn't match. And that was on purpose. This is actually the same color from the same paint manufacturer, and you can see that it doesn't match. That's why paint touch-up is so important. But since the touch-up is so small, it's not noticeable unless you're really looking for it.